101 years after the Dragon Lord Aegon Targaryen conquered Westeros, King Jaharis the Conciliator held a great council to determine the next heir to the Iron Throne. Though Jaharis was a brilliant, wise, transformative figure who took the realm from a state of civil war to a nearly 6-decade-long golden age of peace and prosperity, he lost both sons trained to succeed him, along with the rest of his children, meaning a new heir was needed to ensure a peaceful transfer of power upon his death. Seeking to include the nobility in his decision, Jaharis called a great council in Harrenhal, where the lords of the realm chose between 14 candidates, with most support going towards Rhaenys, eldest living grandchild of the king through his third-born child Aemon Targaryen, and Viserys, the eldest male grandchild, born to Baelon Targaryen, fourth-born child to the king. Over the past century, House Targaryen determined succession through agnatic primogeniture, favoring male claimants, and so the lords of the realm kept on with this tradition, voting for Viserys, a grandson through the younger line, over Rhaenys, granddaughter from the older line, thereby establishing the precedent that males were favored over females in the line of succession. Therefore, when Jaharis died 2 years later, Viserys was crowned king of Westeros, inheriting the wealth and power of his house, a realm at peace and in the height of its power, and authority over their many dragons and dragon riders, securing his grasp upon absolute power. By 112 AC, Rhaenyra Targaryen, the only surviving child of Viserys, served as cupbearer, while his wife Aemma Arryn was pregnant with who he hoped was his son and heir, to be named Baelon. Though Rhaenyra harbored resentment and felt underappreciated by her family, as she could never be the son her father wanted, she contented herself as best she could, spending time with her friend Alicent Hightower, daughter to the Hand of the King Otto Hightower, and her uncle Daemon Targaryen, younger brother to the king and presumptive heir until the birth of his son. An impulsive, violent rogue prince, Daemon had a poor reputation, seen as crude, reckless, and irresponsible, while spending time with prostitutes and vagrants. Yet he was also a masterful warrior, wielding the Valyrian steel sword Darksister, and always had a special, close relationship with his niece, bordering on romantic when she grew older, as House Targaryen accepted and at times encouraged marriage within the family. Reviled by Otto Hightower and others of the small council, Daemon went from position to position until finally finding some success as commander of the City Watch. Yet even there, he caused problems, as there was a great financial cost associated with retraining and re-equipping his guards, even giving them golden cloaks to create a sense of unity and respectability. Yet the greater concern came after a night of extreme violence, when Daemon and his men swept the streets of King's Landing clean, arresting, judging, and sentencing all known criminals, leaving many maimed or killed. Though Daemon justified his actions as necessary to minimize crime before the arrival of the nobility for the royal tourney, Otto was seriously concerned this man now led a 2,000-man army within city walls. Upset that his efforts were never appreciated, Daemon complained to his mistress, the prostitute Miseria, while ignoring his lawful wife Rhea Royce in the Vale. As was often his way, Daemon used violence to gain some measure of revenge by challenging and injuring Otto's son Gwayne Hightower during the tourney, only to be ultimately defeated by Sir Criston Cole, a promising young knight from the Stormlands. During the tournament, Queen Aemma went into labor, leading to complications that left King Viserys with a terrible choice to either allow them both to die, doing whatever they could to lessen the pain, or cut open his wife, forcing her to die horribly for a chance at saving his baby. Reluctantly, he gave the order and watched his wife held down, screaming in pain until she died. His son Baelon was extracted, but died after only a few hours, and so both were given a Targaryen funeral, with their bodies burned by Syrax, the dragon of Rhaenyra. Understanding the magnitude of the opportunity before him, Otto Hightower entered the Game of Thrones in earnest by having his young, beautiful, good-natured daughter Alicent comfort the grieving king, hoping this would create a bond which might turn into love, marriage, and the birth of a son. By putting a man with Hightower blood on the Iron Throne, their house would elevate in status and influence, rising from a regional power in the Southern Reach to one of the most powerful families in the entire realm. But until such a time where a son might be born to the king, a temporary heir was needed to maintain the realm's stability and avoid Daemon once again filling that role. While Otto presented the idea of Rhaenyra as temporary heir, Corlys Velaryon made his own play for power, suggesting his wife Rhaenys Targaryen, as she was already previously considered for the crown and had her own son and heir to follow. Though Viserys had no stomach for such talk, he was provoked into action by Otto's reports that Daemon went out drinking with his men and gave a speech where he supposedly mocked the king's dead son, calling him the heir for a day. Enraged, the king ordered Daemon stripped of his place as heir and commander of the Gold Cloaks before banishing him from the capital. Still grieving his wife and son, Viserys turned to his only child, Rhaenyra, and formally named her heir, breaking with tradition and precedent to establish absolute primogeniture, where the eldest child, whether male or female, inherited the Iron Throne. In order to prepare his daughter for this solemn responsibility, he revealed to her the Song of Ice and Fire, a prophecy passed down from the dreams of Aegon the Conqueror, foretelling of a danger which will invade from the far north and destroy the Seven Kingdoms unless House Targaryen and its dragons are there to stop them. For this reason, the Targaryen line must endure, and the realm remain united. To help secure her claim, Viserys summoned all the High Lords of Westeros to King's Landing, where they swore oaths and pledged their loyalty to the realm's delight Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen. With her new position as heir, the princess sometimes took a more active role in the royal court, choosing Criston Cole as the new Kingsguard because of his battle experience fighting Dornish raiders, and even participated in small council meetings, offering suggestions, like when the Master of Ships Lord Corlys Velaryon told of the Triarchy, an alliance between the free cities of Myr, Tyrosh, and Lys, who were fighting and supplying the campaign of the crab-feeder Cregis Drahar to lay claim upon the Stepstones, using its strategic location to prey upon ships moving into and out of the Narrow Sea, resulting in the loss of 4 Westerosi vessels, including one from House Velaryon. Worse still, captured Westerosi were suffering slow, torturous deaths, being drowned or eaten alive by crabs. When Corlys suggested sending a fleet to deal with them, Rhaenyra agreed and recommended an escort of dragons, but the other counselors and Viserys dismissed the idea, wanting to avoid the short-term bloodshed and financial burden of such a war. Determined to increase his influence and position in the realm, Corlys and his wife Rhaenys met with the king and offered their young daughter Laena as his next wife to solidify the alliance between their houses. Though Viserys was not eager to marry a child, everyone agreed this was the correct match, including Rhaenyra, as House Targaryen and Velaryon were the 2 most powerful families in the realm, had a long history of alliance, and shared Valyrian blood. Yet in the end, Otto's machinations succeeded, as Viserys chose Alicent Hightower, to the shock and anger of both Rhaenyra and Corlys. Resigning from his position as Master of Ships, Corlys sought out Daemon Targaryen, who had taken possession of Dragonstone during his exile from the capital. Having recently suffered another public embarrassment after stealing a dragon egg to get his brother's attention, only for Otto to be sent for its retrieval in place of the king, he was presented with the idea of joining House Velaryon in a private war for the Stepstones, where great glory awaited, independent from the king and support from the crown. Agreeing to the proposition, Daemon led their ships, soldiers, and dragons to war. The next year, in 113 AC, Queen Alicent gave birth to a son, Aegon Targaryen, and while Viserys made no move to change the succession, many started to whisper about the inevitability of a new heir. By 115 AC, these ideas were spoken about more freely, with Jason Lannister even bringing it up to the king, while the princess grew increasingly upset her place as heir was being questioned, made worse by the anger and betrayal she felt at both Alicent and her father for their marriage. After a royal hunt, Viserys, who nearly always sought to avoid confrontation, at last had a direct and honest conversation with his daughter, where he reaffirmed her place as heir, even granting permission for marriage to a husband of her choice. Yet Rhaenyra struggled to take her duties seriously, and cancelled a meeting with nobles in the Stormlands, rudely dismissing potential suitors without even a proper audience, as she had no patience for those who did not meet her standards. Meanwhile, Daemon and House Velaryon were losing their war in the Stepstones, as Cregis Drahar utilized cave systems to avoid their warriors and dragons. Wanting to help his brother, Viserys decided to send 10 ships and 2,000 men to his aid, but this only caused Daemon to explode with fury, knowing this would undo all his efforts and mean he'd never win the respect he craved. Therefore, he threw all caution to the wind, leading his army in the siege of Bloodstone before the aid could arrive, a final all-out attack that started with the rogue prince feigning surrender to draw out the crab-feeder and his men. Though Daemon was nearly killed many times, the plan worked and Cregis Drahar was killed, prompting the victorious Westerosi army to crown their Targaryen leader King of the Narrow Sea. Returning to the capital, Daemon made a grand entrance into the throne room, where he took off and presented his crown to Viserys. Appreciating the gesture, the king embraced and welcomed his brother back, yet Daemon had an ulterior motive for returning, leaving a note in Rhaenyra's room that led her to sneak out at night and meet in the city. Showing her the nightlife of the small folk, they ended up at a pleasure house where he initiated intimacy, until suddenly stopping in visible frustration and departing without explanation. Rhaenyra was so embarrassed and angry she made her way back home and seduced her Kingsguard, Sir Criston Cole, with whom she'd grown close over the years, beginning a secret relationship. Unfortunately for the princess, Mysaria, the former lover of Daemon, was now a spy master in the city and had agents who witnessed her activities that night. For a fee, she shared that information with Otto Hightower, who in turn informed an outraged Viserys, who seemingly refused to believe it, though it later became clear he would not acknowledge it for the sake of the realm and his family's stability. The story as they knew it was that Daemon and Rhaenyra snuck off into the city where they were intimate, and so Viserys spoke to Daemon, who did not deny it, and instead suggested he must now be allowed to marry Rhaenyra. Viserys once again banished him from court. Speaking to his daughter, he reminded her of the seriousness of her position and responsibilities before demanding she marry Laenor Velaryon in order to properly secure her claim and win an important ally back to their house. Since Rhaenyra knew this was serious, she agreed, but also demanded that Otto be replaced as Hand, since he was spying on the royal family and used Alicent to bring his family one step closer to the Iron Throne. Viserys hesitantly agreed and replaced Otto with Lord Lionel Strong, a wise, loyal advisor who'd proven genuine and honest in his dealings. Though Viserys continued pretending he believed Rhaenyra did nothing with Daemon, he sent her moon tea that night, a special medicine to prevent pregnancy, indicating he understood the truth. Though the king was suffering pain from the early stages of leprosy, a slow-acting disease which consumed the skin, he traveled to Driftmark and came to an agreement with Corlys that Rhaenyra would marry Laenor Velaryon. In keeping with Westerosi tradition, the names of their children would be Velaryon. However, when Rhaenyra inherited the throne, she would rule under the name Targaryen, as would her eldest child upon their succession. This meant House Velaryon would not only be the richest house in Westeros, with the largest fleet, but would have enormous influence over House Targaryen, their dragons, and the realm, creating a legacy that might be remembered for all of Westerosi history, which was Lord Corlys' greatest desire. Yet while this union had great potential, with both the king and princess doing their best to move past her night in the city, Queen Alicent was unwilling to let the issue pass, and upon learning what occurred, immediately confronted Rhaenyra, who denied sleeping with Daemon. As they were former friends, and as of late their relationship was improving, Alicent believed her, and even advocated on her behalf with the king, only to later be approached by Rhaenyra Strong, the cunning, ambitious son of the New Hand, who made up for his disabled leg by becoming an expert spy master, using this skill to get whatever he wanted. Hoping to grow closer to the queen, he let her know Rhaenyra was given moon tea, causing Alicent to question Sir Criston Cole about the night's events. Born into a minor noble family in service to House Dondarrion, Criston Cole had no lands, titles, or family fortune, and so invested all his energy and passion into combat, attaining honor through his position in the Kingsguard. Therefore, after throwing away that honor, he poured all his hopes and dreams into Rhaenyra, asking her to run away with him, only to be immediately snapped back into reality when she explained they could only ever be secret lovers, as she must marry Laenor and rule the kingdom. Believing he threw away his life's purpose for nothing, the guilt of his dishonor caused him to confess everything when questioned by the queen, who finally learned the truth of Rhaenyra's actions. Ordering Criston to leave, Alicent was shocked by Rhaenyra's lies and outraged by her behavior, feeling it a grave injustice someone in her position with her responsibilities could so easily break the rules, when Alicent had to sacrifice her own happiness to be a good, respectable, obedient daughter, wife, mother, and queen. Realizing that perhaps her father was right all along in his pursuit of power, Alicent decided it was time to formally enter the Game of Thrones, to ensure her children inherited the crown over the chosen heir Rhaenyra Targaryen. In order to make a bold statement about her newfound loyalty and ambition, Alicent symbolically called her allies to arms by interrupting the king's speech during Rhaenyra's wedding feast to make a grand entrance wearing a beautiful green dress. Sitting in attendance, Rhaenyra Strong was quick to note House Hightower used the color green as a call to war. Though 7 days of festivities were planned to celebrate the wedding, everything changed when Sir Joffrey Lonmouth spoke to Sir Criston Cole. Although Laenor and Rhaenyra seemed a perfect match, the son and heir of Corlys preferred the company of men, and so the two came to an understanding that they would perform their duty as a royal couple, but also have secret lovers to explore private happiness. Sir Joffrey, who was Laenor's lover, accurately predicted Sir Criston was with Rhaenyra, and so approached him to forge an alliance. Yet the Kingsguard was horrified someone discovered his greatest shame and stood in shock for a time before unleashing his rage in a bout of wild madness, bashing Sir Joffrey's face into the ground, brutally killing him in front of all the guests. After finishing with Joffrey, Criston left the room and eventually made his way to the Godswood, where he prepared to take his own life, until Alicent stopped him, offering redemption by serving her cause. From this point forward, Criston was her champion, protector, and agent, while she in turn protected him politically, offering a chance to regain honor and exact vengeance against the princess he now hated. As a result of Joffrey's death and the king's worsening health, all festivities were cancelled to be replaced by a small, sad wedding with only the royal family present in a hall still stained with blood. A special thanks to all those who contribute to CivilizationEx. If you'd like to help the channel, be sure to give a like, leave a comment, subscribe, and check out the links below, or else go to patreon.com/CivilizationEx, where you can gain early access to videos, vote on future content, and watch the Patreon-only series, Heroes of Lore and Legend.